stemming from that, some of us are here today, or you have a friend, or you have a family member, or a neighbor, and the fact of the matter is other worldviews exist, and you have an issue with the exclusivity of Christ. I mean, Jesus says, I am the way. One way to God, and you just have an issue with that. You say, Jesus says he is the way. I mean, he is a way. He might be a good way, but there are other ways. Come on, Brian. I mean, seriously, there are other world religions out there, and aren't they valid, and don't they have truth, and aren't they good? And so those are really valid arguments. For others of you, you had family members. You have family members, and maybe, you say, well, I'm starting to believe in this Christianity thing, but my parents didn't believe, and my grandparents before them didn't believe, and I've got family members and people who are important to me who don't believe. And so if I embrace this Christianity thing, I mean, Brian, that's going to be like, they're wrong. That's going to be like, they, for generation after generation, have done something different, and that's just emotionally in my mind and in my heart especially too hard. And I can't really believe in that Christianity thing because that becomes an obstacle that I can't get past to get to Christianity. For others of us, you may be like a friend of mine that's just like, man, I just don't care. I mean, the reality is Brian, why don't you become a fireman? Brian, why don't you become an astronaut? Why don't you become a banker? And I'd say, well, I don't become those things because I just don't care about any of those things. They're not what interests me. And the person would say, right. So, Brian, when you ask me, why don't you become a Christian? I say it's because there's just no interest. There's no need there. I don't feel the tension, some of you might say. I don't feel that there's a great burning draw toward it, and I'm just like, okay, I just don't care. And now I might come across a gal, and she's a Christian, and she wants me to become a Christian, and maybe I could go there for a couple hours a week, and I'm okay with those values maybe, but right now it just doesn't matter to me. And so some of us sitting here today, or people who you interact with, they're going to have objections, they're going to have issues, they're going to have obstacles, and those are real. They are real intellectual obstacles. And so what I want to do for the next 4 weeks is not just push those aside, not just act like they don't exist, not just kind of say, hey, just don't worry about those, and those are just kind of, something that's over here, and just don't worry, let's just become a believer. That's not what I'm talking about. Those are real things, but I want to share this with you. Very few adults, over the thousands of years that Christianity have been around, very few adults have become Christians and become believers in Jesus, followers of Jesus, because they got all their obstacles sorted out. Very few people say, man, I have a real issue with suffering in the world. And so you give somebody a book. Here's about suffering in the world from a Christian standpoint. Here's how Christians view people going through trials and suffering in the world. And somebody reads the book and checks it off and says, oh, great. Okay, I've got that objection down, so I'm ready to become a believer. See, that's not how it works. If you sat across the table from me and you said, Brian, I want you to know I'm having a big issue with suffering in the world, and that's an obstacle that I can't get past to become a believer in Jesus Christ, you know what would happen? We could sit there and we could talk all day long about suffering. We could talk about all the issues you have with suffering, and I could give you all kinds of informations and books and articles, even introduce you to somebody who has the same objection or obstacle. And the fact of the matter is at the end of the day, you probably would not believe in Jesus Christ and become a Christian. Why? Because most adults, very few adults, come to a place where they get all their objections answered, and so they place their faith in Christ. Very few get over those obstacles. Most people, something different happens. And the something different that happens is this. It's not that the obstacles are pushed out to the side. It's not that they vanish. It's not that they go away. But what happens is something else happens inside to shrink those obstacles down. And that's what I'm praying that happens with us over the next 4 weeks. It's not that those obstacles are gone, but they are shrunk down because of something else.